All right. Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for our ACE Your Interview webinar. My name is Beth Stewart. I'm the Marketing and Communications Coordinator here at the University of Arizona Eller MBA programs. We're here in very sunny Tucson today. So today, we're going to help you ace your MBA interviews by showing you common mistakes and how to fix them. You're about to meet Gabe. Gabe is an MBA applicant who is not excelling in his interviews. So we'll watch parts of his interview, break down his mistakes, share the best solutions, and then watch him try again. Let's get started. So preparation is one of the keys to an excellent interview experience. Let's see how well Gabe is prepared for his MBA admissions interview, and if he's able to communicate why the University of Arizona is the right school for him.
So Gabe, tell us why you think the Eller MBA program is the right program for you.
I've thought about it a whole lot, and I really think my true interests are in investment banking. So in the finance world, I think IB is extremely dynamic. It's a very exciting time. I'm young. I can really get in there and do good work.
So you do realize that investment banking isn't really one of our specialties, correct?
Well, even though maybe IB's not there, I've also heard that you have great placement rates in New York City. So if I can just get to Wall Street, I think it's going to be okay. And I've heard that the MBA program at Eller is all about New York City. Like, a lot of people graduate and they go there, and it's perfect.
And you do know where Tucson, Arizona is in relation to New York.
Yeah, but I mean, it shouldn't be a huge deal, right? I mean, an MBA is an MBA.
So what went wrong? Well, Gabe clearly didn't do his research on this school. His desired career path wasn't one of the school's specialties. He wanted to work in a geographic area where the school doesn't have strong ties. And the whole an MBA is an MBA thing, probably not what his interviewer needed to hear from him. So how to fix it? Do your research. And research won't just help your interview go smoothly. This should really be done before you even apply to schools. You're going to invest a significant amount of time and money in earning your MBA, so you want to make sure you're looking for the right fit for you. Once you're sure a school could be a good fit for you, make sure to communicate to your interviewer why his or her school is a good fit, how you can succeed there, and what kind of representative you would be for their brand. Now let's watch Gabe get it right. He communicates why the school's strengths align with his goals, and he makes a much better impression.
So Gabe, tell me why the Eller MBA program is the right program for you.
I'm really glad you asked, Jim. I'm super excited about Eller for three main reasons. The first is the entrepreneurship program. So I know that the McGuire Center is extremely highly ranked nationally, and I'm excited to be a part of that. Secondly is the small student-to-faculty ratio. So I know my class sizes are going to be small, which means I can really get to know my colleagues and be able to perform well with others. Third is the incredible weather in Tucson. I know that there's a lot of sun and a lot of heat, and I love both of those.
All right, so definitely a much better impression made there. So you want to think of your interview as your chance to connect with the admissions team. They already know who you are on paper. They know your scores, they know your stats, but now you can help them see you as a person. It's crucial that you help them understand your story and where an MBA and their school fit into that story. Let's see if Gabe is able to tell his story effectively.
So why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Well, my name is Gabe, and I'm 31 years old. Just had my birthday last week, which is pretty awesome. I was born in Texas, but actually moved around about 15 times or so. Most recently, I think what's kind of, really kind of on my mind is that my girlfriend and I are kind of on the rocks. And so it's really been a struggle to figure out kind of what I want to do because she's a big part of my life right
now. Okay, so what went wrong here? This grumpy guy wonders. Well, Gabe didn't tell his story effectively. He got way too personal. He shared irrelevant information and then forgot to mention his goals. He didn't communicate why an MBA is important to him and why he and the school are a good fit. And his word choice and demeanor were pretty informal, and it looked like that made the interviewer question his professionalism. How to fix it? Frame your story. You want to share your story in a way that is compelling, focused, and well-framed. Give the interviewer some context. Share your recent work history, what led you to seek an MBA, and what you're planning to accomplish once you've earned the degree. Let's watch Gabe give it another try. This time, he frames his story by talking about his career and how he plans to use the MBA.
So tell me about yourself.
My name's Gabe. I've spent the last 3 years in the food production industry, particularly with consumer packaged goods. I spent 2 years with General Mills, a Fortune 500 company, and another year down in Brazil, in Rio de Janeiro. I'm now interested in getting my MBA because I really want to move into more of a sales and marketing role as opposed to the quality role I've been in for the last 3 years.
All right, now I feel like I know a little bit of his story. So your materials will continue to represent you after you've left the room. You'll want them to be a reminder of your career highlights and a great example of your organizational skill. Let's take a look at what Gabe's resume looked like before. So you can see it's 2 pages, and then we've blown up a portion of it so we can look at that. I'm seeing, okay, a lot of design and programming and web development history. Not quite sure how that applies to getting into our MBA program. His related educational experience. It looks like we don't even get to his job history until page 2. Things aren't aligned on the right side either. That makes it a little hard to read. So what went wrong? Well, this resume really isn't at the MBA level. It's more than 1 page long, which for a guy with 3 years of work history is much too long. There are too many paragraph style sections. There's too much prose and not enough action verbs. The achievements section included volunteering at a registration desk. We don't need any fluff in there. And there's too much focus on prior technical skills. The resume didn't really look tailored to the objective. How to fix it? Keep it simple and informative. Your resume should be appealing, easy to scan, and always up to date. It should fit on 1 page with consistent formatting, and you should use strong action verbs to clearly demonstrate results and accomplishments. You want to be absolutely sure there are no spelling or grammatical errors. That's a huge red flag. Let's take a look at what Gabe's resume could look like after these fixes. So here we're seeing a 1-page resume. Things are left justified and right justified. Everything's aligned. I see strong action verbs, analyzed, advanced, directed, and everything looks tailored to the job that he's applying for here. All right, much better. So once you've got your materials looking good, you want to make sure that you look the part. Within 20 seconds, the interviewer will form a first impression of you on the basis of your appearance. So your grooming, your dress, smile, posture, handshake. It is essential that you develop rapport immediately. You want to show that you're a competent, friendly professional with something to contribute to the school. So check out these potential interview outfits. These would probably not make a good first impression. I see the gentleman is wearing some cargo pants that look like they might be designed for hiking. He's wearing a blazer and she's wearing a vest, but those are pretty much the only elements that might be appropriate. So what went wrong? The clothing is too casual and too revealing. The shoes aren't professional. And the man is unshaven while the woman is wearing heavy eye makeup. How to fix it? You want to put your best foot forward, preferably in a well-polished shoe. Basically, if you would look good in a club atmosphere, the outfit is not appropriate for an interview. And if there's any question, always err on the side of conservative. Let's see some good examples. Here we have dark colors, plain suits, well-polished dress shoes, natural makeup, polished hair, and they're all wearing big smiles. Big smiles are an element of nonverbal communication, and just one of the elements that can really speak quite clearly to an interviewer. So let's look at some common body language mistakes.
So what contributions do you think you can specifically bring to the program?
So I'm pretty sure that I'm a really, really good communicator. And so I think my colleagues can learn a lot from me, communicating with them and having a lot of fun. Additionally, I've got a pretty analytical mind, which means that I see things other people don't tend to see. So like be it math or statistics or whatever, I really think that's going to be an important part of the program, and I can add a lot there too.
I love that sideways look there at the end. So what went wrong? This lady looks pretty angry about it, whatever it is. Well, Gabe distracts from his words with his inappropriate body language. At the beginning, he had this casual slouch back in the chair, and it almost made it seem like he wasn't really taking the interview seriously. Then he was looking up and all around the room, pretty much everywhere but at the interviewer. And his informal body language when he had his chin propped on the table seemed immature. How to fix it? You want to learn to project relaxed confidence. Ideally, you want to be cool, calm, and collected. Everyone gets nervous in interviews, but it's important to communicate a confident, open, relaxed presence. Be friendly and professional, and keep an eye on your posture as well. And don't be afraid to smile and be yourself. Here's Gabe giving it another shot, this time while maintaining eye contact and a professional posture.
What contributions do you think you can specifically make to the LRMBA program?
I'm confident that my communication skills will be of extreme value to the MBA program here at Eller for two reasons. One, I can interact with current students and classmates in order to bring their abilities to a higher level as well as enhance my own. And then secondly, in dealing with alumni and potential career recruiters.
Okay, so it looks like Gabe has his body language under control, but might be stumbling over his words a little bit. Your word choice creates an image of you, and you want to consider whether it's the image you want to project. What do you think of Gabe based on his word choice in this video?
Give me an example of a time when you led a project.
The last time I led a project actually happened because my boss was really bad. And so I had to take over for my boss because they were getting absolutely nothing done, and it was just a crappy situation altogether. And so basically I just took control of the project, and I made sure that everyone got their stuff done. I'm super hardcore when it comes to that stuff, so it was really, really nice to be able to knock this project out. And it was successful, but really, I just needed to get a new boss. That's the moral of the story.
Okay, so what went wrong here? Well, Gabe definitely didn't sound articulate, and he also didn't sound like a very nice person. He badmouthed his former colleagues. He used a lot of slang, super hardcore slang. His speech was littered with filler words such as like and really, really. So how can you fix it? Well, it turns out my dad was right. We need to learn to think before we speak. First of all, you want to make sure never to speak disparagingly of current or former colleagues. We all encounter problems at work, but a mature professional takes responsibility and can communicate what he or she learned from the situation without reflecting poorly on someone else. It's also important to choose your exact words wisely. Teenagers and undergraduates may use slang and rely on words such as like, but you're interviewing to enter the MBA world. You'll want to practice speaking in a genuine but more formal way so that your words represent you well. Let's take a look. This time, Gabe is able to describe the situation without placing blame, and he speaks eloquently to boot.
Tell me about a time when you led a project.
So my last role in sales with a large pharmaceutical company, a couple of my colleagues and I were working on a pretty large project. And we were falling a little bit behind schedule, so I had to take the initiative to really kind of bring the team together and work towards a goal of 20% increase in sales volume. Through a couple of self-initiated directives and working with the rest of my colleagues, we did a very good job and actually hit that goal in less than a month.
All right, much better. Communication skills are a big part of what MBA employers and therefore MBA programs are looking for. The ability to succinctly express yourself and describe results will impress any interviewer. Let's see how Gabe is holding up.
Do you have a professional mentor?
There are some people that I've always kind of thought about as mentors and stuff. So like, I mean, a couple of my bosses in the past have done a good job working with me, and then I really respect some people in really big companies too, because it's impressive. Like these CEOs, it's just incredible the work they do. But really, there's some people that in the past who, they've been really cool and they've been really great with me, and so they basically be mentors. But like, I really don't know how much time a mentor really takes, but I definitely think they do qualify as a mentor because I spent so much time.
So what went wrong? Well, Gabe didn't really answer the question, did he? He vaguely referred to some people in the past who kind of helped him. And he kept talking in circles, which ultimately made it seem like maybe he didn't really know what the word mentor meant. So how to fix it? You want to share facts and, when possible, quantifiable examples. If you need a second to compose a thoughtful answer, go ahead and take it. If you need clarification on what a question means, ask for it. Don't just launch into a vague or circular response that doesn't really answer the question. When you fall into that habit, it's really quite obvious to the interviewer. It's always best to share specific details and facts to help the interviewer understand what you're saying. And if you can give quantifiable examples, that's even better. So in this retake, Gabe refers to a particular person, a particularly influential individual, and shares specific ways in which his mentor has helped him.
Do you have a professional mentor?
Yes, one of my former professors in college has been very influential in my professional life, and that was from the point of graduation from college all the way until now getting my MBA. And every step of the process, I was able to talk to him, voice any concerns, and he relayed feedback based on my characteristics, my personality, and why he thought I might be making a good move for myself.
Okay, so that time Gabe answered the question in a way that we were able to follow what he was saying. Your MBA interviews deserve your full attention. You want to show the school why you're an excellent candidate and why the school is a good fit for you. Let's see if Gabe can stay fully engaged.
Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years?
About 3 or so years from now.
What's up?
So one of my friends is right outside. Hold 1 second. Okay, sorry about that. So as I was saying, in about 3 years, I'm so sorry. My phone's ringing really quick. Let me answer this text. I'm really sorry about this, but it's really.
Okay.
Okay, all right. I think we should be okay to go.
Okay, so what went wrong here? Well, if Gabe had any hope left of getting into this MBA program, he probably blew it here. He brought a noisy buddy with him to the interview and had to leave the room to talk to him. I don't know if you all noticed, but it looked like the interviewer was having a hard time keeping a straight face by this point. He answered his phone mid-interview, and then he even composed a text while making the interviewer wait. How to fix it? It's so simple. You just need to pay attention. You want to give your MBA interview your undivided attention. If you need to bring a friend for moral support, send him or her for coffee or tea while the interview is taking place. Your cell phone should be completely off, but if you can't bring yourself to turn it off and you're tempted to check your phone or answer a text, just leave the phone in your briefcase or with your friend. Whatever the message is, it can wait until after this interview is over. Some of your business school interviews may actually not occur in person. So if your interview is conducted via Skype, there are some extra concerns. Let's see just a few of the things that can go wrong. So here it looks like the person Gabe is supposed to Skype with is offline, probably because it's 7:20 in the evening there, so he's probably not in the office. On the left, that could be anybody. We can't even tell that that's Gabe. It might be Gabe's super articulate cousin. And then on the right, he looks a little ghostly. And that looks like a polo shirt that he's wearing. So what went wrong? Well, basically, this student is not ready for a long-distance interview. He calculated the time change incorrectly and missed his interviewer. The lighting behind his computer isn't clear, and he isn't professionally dressed. How to fix it? You'll want to test and retest. First, let me just say that Skype interviews may seem more casual than in-person interviews, but they really aren't. You should put just as much effort into presenting a professional demeanor as you would during an in-person interview. And in fact, there are a few extra steps you'll want to take. First, make sure your software is up to date and your space is well lit and free of any questionable materials. If you have posters of your favorite football player up on the wall, take them down for the day. You'll want to double check the time zone difference to make sure you're on time, and you'll want to be formally dressed. We actually recommend a Skype test run with a friend a few days before your interview, just to ensure that everything is working smoothly and that you're representing yourself well. So there you have it, fixes for those common interview mistakes. Let's recap. You'll want to do your research and make sure you can articulate why the school is a great fit for you. You'll want to give the interviewer some context for your compelling story by framing your story. With your materials, you'll want to keep them simple and informative. Your resume should be appealing, easy to scan, and error-free. You'll want to put your best foot forward by dressing conservatively and sharply to make a great first impression. Be friendly, professional, and don't forget to smile. That will help you project that relaxed confidence. Think before you speak in your answers. You'll want to stay away from placing blame, and you won't want to rely on slang. Compose yourself and share specific details to support your results. Sharing facts and quantifiable examples will impress your interviewer. You must pay attention. Your calls, your texts, and your friends can wait until this interview is complete. And in a long-distance interview, you'll want to test and retest. Double-check all of your tech and do a dress rehearsal with a friend. Now it's time for you to research, rehearse, and believe in yourself. This guy is tasting the sweet nectar of victory, and he wants you to do the same. Go ace your interviews. Thanks for joining the University of Arizona Eller MBA programs for this webinar. We're going to open it up for questions now, and afterward, if you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to email me at uaellermba@eller.arizona.edu. Huge thanks to our graduate assistant, Adam Tank, for starring in our videos, along with our Director of MBA Admissions, Jim Duranick. Consulting was provided by our MBA Career Management team members, Renee Montoya and Gloria Verdeen. So our admissions director, Jim Duranick, is actually here with me now to help answer your questions. So we're going to go ahead and open those up at this point. Okay, so we're getting a question. What sorts of questions are good to ask after the interview? So Jim, you want to field this one?
While you're after the interview, make sure to ask questions specifically regarding your career interests, if you know the school, what type of jobs you're looking for, what type of companies interview. You know, make sure you ask some detailed questions about the program. Again, this all comes back to doing your homework and research regarding the program. You want to make sure you ask questions that are relevant to the program, whether it's about specific classes, whether it's about location, whether it's about cost of living, but items that really are not generic but are in relation to the program. This will not only let the interviewer know that you've done your research, but that you have a genuine interest in the program itself.
Okay, thanks, Jim. So this is a great question. For long distance interviews, some countries do not have fast internet connectivity, and often disconnection problems might be common. So if this happens for some reason, how will all of this be looked at? So first of all, I think it's probable that anyone you're interviewing with has interviewed many people in the region that you're from. So these issues, it won't be the first time that they've happened. Jim, can you tell us a little more about how admissions people might look at disconnections and problems with the internet?
If it's a problem with the internet, that really is not something that an interviewer will look unfavorably upon. As Beth stated, these things happen. We understand that. We're not going to penalize any candidate because of an internet connection. We will just try to resolve it. You know, if we cannot do it that day, maybe we have to reschedule for another day, and hopefully the internet connection is better. But again, we understand these things do happen, and by no means would a candidate be penalized for any technical problem dealing from the internet.
And I have to say, you know, all that being said, this is not an excuse to get out of double checking all of your tech. You know, if your regional internet drops connectivity, that's one thing, and that's definitely not your fault. But if you haven't updated your Skype software and it can't keep up with the interview you're trying to run, that is on you. So you want to make sure that you double, triple check everything having to do with the technical side of things a few days before your interview. So here's a question. Ideally, how long should answers be? Well, I think that Gabe, in our interview, Adam Tank, our GA in real life, did a great job when he was showcasing what to do. His answers were typically 30 to 60 seconds. However, the real answer here is however long it takes you to succinctly explain your answer to the question. You definitely don't want to be rambling. You don't want to give extraneous details. You will want to work on focusing and framing your story. But if it's a complex situation and it takes a little bit of time to explain, I'm sure the interviewer can hang in there with you. So here's a question asking what a candidate should do if they don't understand the interviewer's question. So as we mentioned earlier, you shouldn't feel ashamed about asking someone to repeat the question or asking them to clarify a portion of the question, especially via Skype. Sometimes words are hard to understand. Sometimes connectivity causes a little bit of blip problematic issues. So don't feel like you can't ask what an interviewer might specifically mean. Jim, do you have anything else to add?
What you want to do, yeah, again, ask the interviewer to either repeat the question, or he can ask him if he can rephrase the question in a different way if you don't understand it. But again, make sure you understand the question fully before you begin your answer.
Right. And everyone, you know, while we have Jim here, our Director of Admissions, feel free to ask other MBA-related questions. We want to help you prepare for your interviews, but if part of that is researching other aspects of MBA preparation, we're happy to help. So here's a question asking, what is the primary goal of the interview? So I would say that the interview is a chance for you to showcase who you are aside from the numbers on the page. It's a chance for the interviewer to assess your body language, how you think, whether you're able to focus, to look at all those sorts of verbal and nonverbal cues. And for you, as you're interviewing, it's a chance for you to assess fit. Ultimately, you want to select a school where you feel that they're really focused on you, that they know your story, that they're invested in helping you achieve your goals. So if during an interview you're getting the feeling that the interviewer can't wait to move on to the next thing, that should be a red flag, and that should be something that you consider in your decision-making process. The next question is, what are the best practices to tackle a question that completely falls out of your knowledge area? Well, this makes me think of Google interview tactics. We've all heard that they might ask, how many ping pong balls will fit in the room. Those types of questions are designed to assess your thinking process and how you go about problem solving. It's highly unlikely that you'll encounter anything that specific or that technical in an MBA interview. But it's certainly possible that you'll receive a question that completely falls out of your knowledge area. I think your best bet there is to be honest. You can explain that this isn't your area of expertise, and then go into what kinds of problem solving or thought methods you would use to understand the situation. Jim, did you have anything to add there?
And the only other thing you can really do if it's out of your knowledge area is, again, ask to rephrase the question or repeat the question just to make sure you understand it correctly. And then what you can try to do is relate it to an area that you do have knowledge of. So if it's something that you are just not aware of, you could, state that, but say I'm going to compare this to something that I do have knowledge of, and go from there and see if that is fine with the interviewer.
Great. So here's a question asking if face-to-face interviews are given more prominence. Truthfully, that really depends on the school, and you'll want to check on a school's guidelines before you make the decision whether to fly in or interview via Skype. Some things to consider might be whether the school offers scholarships only to people that they meet in person. And you can ask them how much they prefer to really meet people in person. I can tell you that for us, within our region, yes, we expect people to make the trip to campus, and we're always very excited to meet people in person. But outside our immediate region, we rely on Skype for the majority of our interviews. A lot of the skills that we talked about in this presentation are just as easy to evaluate via Skype as they are in person. Okay. So keep the questions coming, everyone. These are great questions. Okay, here's a bit of a long one. What if you were going on a self-initiated interview where the interviewer doesn't have the application because it's not due yet and only has a copy of the resume? How will an application blind interview differ from a typical invite-only interview? Okay, I actually haven't encountered this situation, so I'm going to pass this one off to Jim.
Again, this is really a school-specific question, and you may run into this situation. Some schools will use alumni that may only have your resume in front of them, and other schools may have a full packet. So it's going to depend on the situation of the school. The best thing that I would tell you to do is, no matter where you go, you do not know what type of interview this is going to be. You don't know whether the person has your full file, or they just have your resume, or they just have your name. What I would do is I would prepare for every interview the same. Do your research, find out as much as you can about the school, about the programs, have your questions ready. whatever it is, that way you are not putting the burden on the interviewer, or you don't need to tailor your answers or your questions based on how the interviewer, what kind of information they have, but you are prepared anyway. Remember, you're not going to know going into the interview how much that interviewer has, how much information they have of you. So if you prepare the same way for every interview, it will not be an issue on what type of material the interviewer has with them.
And when we say prepare the same way, that's when we're talking about that in-depth research, really making sure that you're prepared. This is also a great instance for you to really utilize those skills of framing your story. Oftentimes, if an interviewer only has your resume in front of them, they might start with a very broad question, something like, tell me about yourself. So this is your chance to really give the interviewer that context, walk them through your recent career history, what prompted you to seek the MBA, and what you hope to get out of the degree. This question wonders if it is helpful to get a recommendation from an alum of the same school you're applying to.
The recommendations are usually, it is recommended for your letters of recommendation for people that know you in a business sense. So, preferably your boss, if that is possible, someone you have had as a client, someone you work for in business, someone who knows you in a working environment, knows what you can contribute to the program, and knows what type of skills you would bring to a program. An alum, if the alum knows these things about you, that is great, but is not, an alum that doesn't know you and they are just an alum is not going to pull as much weight as someone who knows you in the business environment. So does an alum help? Only if they know you in the working environment and knows what you can bring to the program. But just their name that they are alum does not really hold any extra weight as far as letters of recommendation.
Okay. Should a candidate have an understanding of business news in current events? Do these types of topics generally come up in the interview as part of the discussion? Well, I'm a big advocate of always staying on top of current events. We recommend that our students read several news and business publications every morning so that they're prepared to discuss these events and have context for what's going on in the world. As far as whether these types of topics come up in the interview, again, that really depends on the school. Some interviewers will focus heavily on behavioral questions, asking how you handled a certain type of situation or problem. It's always best in that case, by the way, not to talk in hypotheticals. You don't want to say, well, if this happened, I would handle it this way. The interviewer really wants to hear that you've already encountered this problem and you've already learned how to tackle it. So you want to give them a specific example of what the issue was, how you dealt with it, and what your results were. Do you have anything else to add about current event topics coming up in the interview?
Well, what you want to remember again is you do not know, sometimes, again, your interview may be conducted by an admissions officer, it may be conducted by an alumni, it may be conducted by a current student. So the topics can come from a variety of different areas, and having some knowledge of current events definitely is not going to hurt you. And what it would do is just help you prepare for any situation during the interview.
Yeah, and another way that being on top of those current event topics can really help is that ultimately, whenever you meet someone, be it in an interview or at a networking event, at an industry event, you're really looking to form a connection with that person, to learn a little bit about them, help them learn a little bit about you. And if you have a common understanding of what's going on in the world, you might strike upon a topic that's of interest to both of you, and that might help facilitate that connection. It's much more likely that you will stick in someone's mind if you're able to make that connection. Here's a question asking if schools use interviews as a relative metric against the pool of candidates being interviewed. For example, if 75% of the candidates are not having an overall good interview. However, the schools have to take 50%. Would the selection boil down to the best of the average in that scenario? Well, if interviews were the only deciding factor in admissions, perhaps. But they're really just one factor in your complete package. So schools typically are going to be looking at your undergraduate GPA, your GMAT, your work experience, how you perform in the interview, so a wide range of factors. If you're not a great interviewer, but your numbers are fantastic, that might balance each other out. And likewise, if you're not a very good test taker, but you're able during an interview to communicate, the breadth or depth of your work experience and knowledge and what you can contribute to the school, that might balance out. So it's really about making sure that you have the complete package lined up to the best of your capabilities. If the candidate intends to enter a particular field post-MBA but doesn't have pre-MBA experience in that field, does it weaken his or her candidacy? My gut reaction to this question is to say no. Many times, students that are enrolling in a full-time MBA, so students that are stepping outside of the workforce for 2 years to pursue this degree, are career changers, are people who are looking for that catalyst to make a completely different career work for them, to take that leap. So I do think schools are prepared to see that you might not have experience in that interest. Jim, what do you think?
It does not weaken your candidacy, but what you need to do is have a game plan. You cannot come into an MBA and think it's going to make that decision for you. What an interviewer does not want to hear is that I'm going to get my MBA because then I'll know what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. If you do want to change fields, that's fine, but have an idea of what you want to do, why you want to go there, how you're going to get there, and explain that during the interview. But don't go into it explaining that the MBA is going to solve all your problems and create this wonderful job for you at the end. You still do need to have a plan, because in most programs, within basically 6 weeks of when the program starts, you are already interviewing for internships for the summer for the next year. And if you do not have a game plan or know where you want to work or what field you want to work in, what industry you want to work in, it's going to also be awful hard to articulate that to career services and help them find a job for you.
And this is another chance to really exercise some of those skills we talked about, principally framing your story and sharing specifics. If you're able to communicate to the interviewer how your career up until this point has led you to want to make this career change, that can be a strong way to frame the situation. You can talk about what made you realize you want to make the change, what career you want to change to, and how you envision the MBA helping you leverage your skills to succeed in this new field. For a broad question like, tell me about yourself, is it okay to highlight the personal side also, apart from the professional side? Well, this is a tricky line to walk. As we saw in our video examples, Adam got way too personal, talking about his recent breakup, how much he moved as a kid, that he had a birthday recently. Those types of personal facts aren't really applicable to the interview process. That's not relevant information that the interviewer needs. If there's a bit of personal information that helps put your story in context, if, for example, your undergraduate GPA isn't as high as you would have liked because you went home for a semester to help care for an ailing parent, the interview is a great time to help put that in context. But it isn't the time to try to be making friends with the interviewer. While you do want to make that connection, the interviewer isn't there to be your buddy. So you want to be very, very careful about how much personal information you share.
If you can take a personal situation and explain how it relates to the MBA world or business world, it would be fine. For instance, if you say you moved, as a child, you moved every 2 years. What this did is it gave me the ability to make friends quickly and interact with new people in different cultures. That would be fine. Again, you don't want to talk about, birthdays and girlfriends and breakups, but if you can relate something from your personal life and how it developed you into a person in the, that would enable you to interact in the MBA world, that would be perfectly fine. So just think before you talk about personal situations and make sure that wherever you're going with this statement is something that would relate to have your application, benefit you as far as the, the MBA world.
If an interviewer asks you about a failure you've encountered in your professional life, how do you best explain that without leaving a negative impression? Well, I would say that being able to talk about a professional failure and what you learned from it would be a sign of professional maturity. So I think that they're really, if they ask that question, they're really expecting that you're not perfect and you have at one point or another made some sort of error. And I think the important thing is not so much what the error was, but how you dealt with it, what you learned from it, and how you'll address similar situations in the future. That being said, you would never want to share a situation that made it seem as though your professional integrity was compromised. So these are the kinds of questions when doing your research and thinking about framing your story that you'll absolutely want to rehearse. It's a great idea to be able to walk through your career history and be able to answer these sorts of example questions, these sorts of behavioral interview questions in a way that shows the interviewer what you've learned.
And what you also do not want to do if it's a negative or a question to explain something that happened about a failure, you do not want to place blame on someone else. Again, what you want to stress is what you learned from the situation, how you went forward, and how you improved. So you do not want to place blame on anyone, or criticize anyone about that situation.
Absolutely. Think of the video example where Gabe blamed a company failure on his inept boss. That did not make a good impression. And when we saw him talk about the situation again, he was able to describe the problem and how they handled it without placing blame on any of his colleagues. Is 2 years of work experience enough to be viewed as a prospective candidate?
That is really going to be school specific on the amount of work experience. Some schools will take candidates with 2 years work experience or less. Some will require more. So this is one of those things where you need to do your research. Do your research on the program, look at their profile, look at the average year's work experience. Remember, though, on the profiles, those are averages. So if you see an average of 3.5 to 4 years, there are probably people that have less than 3.5 to 4 years. Will they take 2 years work experience? That will depend on the program, but you need to do your research on the program. If you do have less years work experience, it's not always the number of years, but it's the quality of the work experience. Have you been a project manager? Have you had, substantial responsibilities in your job? The quality of the work experience will matter as long as, it is something that, is relatable. Sometimes it is more important than the number of years specifically. So again, it's really not a black and white situation on is 2 years enough or not. It really depends on the school. So again, this is where you need to do your research on the program.
Right. And this is also another example of sort of your whole package. So if you don't have several years of work experience, but you have lots of other qualities that would make you a good contributor to the class as a whole, the interviewer or the admissions team, we're professionals. We look at these situations all the time. So if you can communicate in other ways, through your essays, through your interview, through your GMAT scores, that you would be a strong contributor to the class, that will definitely weigh heavily in your favor. How do you best answer, tell me your biggest weakness questions? Can you please give an example?
You know,
I can say that the typical answer for most young candidates is something like, well, I'm too much of a perfectionist. You know, I work too hard. I think that the interviewer in general can see through those answers. So it is a good idea to have, you know, you really should have an understanding of who you are as a professional, where your strengths and weaknesses lie, how you can leverage your strengths, and how you can improve those weaknesses. Jim, what do you think?
and what you can also do is with your biggest weakness is say this, show how or explain how, you know, this is what you're looking to improve, you know, with an MBA program. For instance, if, you know, maybe you are not a great communicator or afraid of getting up, you know, in front of people to talk, you can say, I'm looking forward, you know, to take some classes in the MBA program that deal with communication skills and business communication classes and work with people, because this is an area I realize is a weakness, and I feel through taking classes and working through this program, this is something I can improve. So again, it's not always about, you know, we're not trying to call you out or see what your weaknesses are. We're looking at how you handle the weakness and what you are looking to do to improve the situation.
Okay, we have time for just a couple more questions, or a few more questions. So here's one asking how you would describe the ideal essay.
The easiest question on how to describe the ideal essay is the ideal essay is one that answers the question. That's the biggest problem every admissions officer will tell you, and the first advice we give to someone is read the question and answer the question. A lot of people will start off in their first paragraph answering the question and go off on some tangent because there's some information they feel they just need to tell you. Make sure what you're doing is answering the question first and foremost. And also, do not copy, cut, paste other essays you have written for other programs into our essay. Even though you think they're close, most of them are a little bit different, and there may be a different spin on them. Make sure, a great example on the essay is to make sure your essay is proofread by other people. Give your essay to someone without the question. Have them read the essay and see if they know what question you are trying to answer. You know, make sure you have the correct school name. Make sure you have the correct school spelling. These are all very simple points to get a successful essay for a program. But first and foremost, you know, answer the question. It's our chance to get to know you a little better. It's a chance for you to explain, you know, a little bit about you as a person. But we want you to answer the question that we have asked. Many schools have additional essays that you could put as supplemental essays. If that is the point where if there's something you feel you need to describe about yourself that we didn't answer, that is the place to do it. So again, make sure you first of all, you know, read the question and answer what we have asked you.
I love that suggestion of having someone read the essay without having seen the question. That's a great idea. I think it's also important to consider what the purpose of the various essays might be. So if there's an essay and it's used to determine whether or not you're awarded a scholarship, you really want to pay attention to that. You know, if you have to spend 10 hours on this essay, but it might earn you a $10,000 scholarship, that's a very clear way of looking at, you know, how important these essays can be. And in a lot of ways, the essays are similar to some interview situations. As Jim mentioned, they're really a chance for admissions staffers to get to know the applicant a little better, especially if it's a question like, well, essentially the written equivalent of tell me about yourself. It's really great if you can do a little bit of storytelling, help the reader you know, get to know you and see where you've been and where you're going. That's definitely me coming at things from a marketing and communications perspective, but I can tell you that the essays that really stick out to me are the memorable stories. Okay, we have 2 minutes left. So we're going to start wrapping up. Okay. Yes, we're going to start wrapping up. So as we mentioned, if you think of any questions a little bit later on, please feel free to reach out to us. My name is Beth, and you can reach Jim and me at our email address, which is still up on the screen. It's uaellermba@eller.arizona.edu. We have a small program here, and we're all about really being invested in our students. And you can tell that during the application process as well. So if anyone has any questions you think we might be able to help with, feel free to reach out. We're always happy to help.
Thank you for your attendance today. I look forward to reading each one of your applications. I look forward to interviewing each of you with these great tips we have given you. So again, as Beth stated, we are here to help you. So if there are any questions on any part of the application or process, please do not hesitate to email us, and we would be happy to help you out.
Okay.